So we are going to take you to the two distilleries that John Teeling had purchased. We're going to the Cooley Distillery. That was the first distillery to operate, the first new distillery to operate in Ireland in 100 years. He broke the Irish distillers' monopoly on distilling whiskey in Ireland. So this is on the Cooley Peninsula. It was an industrial, state-run potato alcohol plant. And he had to purchase some pot stills so he could produce whiskey and various other pieces of equipment. But he was able to get it up and running and producing award-winning whiskey within, those years that it took to mature that whiskey. Now, his biggest problem was warehousing, because with industrial alcohol plants, you tank things out. So he was short of space for storage of his casks. So what he did was he shipped a lot of his casks over to the Kilbeggan Distillery, which he had purchased. And, of course, there's the Kilbeggan Distillery. Now, the Kilbeggan Distillery is one of the oldest distilleries in the world. And it operated up into the 50s, where it got in trouble like a lot of the distilleries. It basically was a large enough distillery, it had a lot of warehousing, so he was able to purchase it. The interesting thing is, the people of Kilbeggan kept that distillery license alive all those years. So eventually, he was able to distill whiskey there. So again, he sold out to Beam, which became Beam Suntory. But we now have the Kilbeggan Distillery up and running and producing whiskey as well. Now, John Teeling revived the Tyrconnell name, famous whiskey name from the turn of the century, Connemara. And of course, Locke's whiskey, which was originally, that's before Kilbeggan, was the name of the distillery. Prior to that, it was called the Brusna Distillery. And of course, Kilbeggan whiskey. So all of these whiskeys are up and running here today. And we're going to focus on Tyrconnell. I'm going to wander away from our traditional Irish to this brand here, Tyrconnell. Now, Tyrconnell was huge at the turn of the century. Tyrconnell was Alexander Watt. It was a big distillery, his distillery, and this was not the distillery name. The Alexander Watt Distillery was producing this brand as a result of a horse race. Now, he had this horse, Tyrconnell, that was entered into an Irish stakes race, big race, and it was thought to be too short, not have a good enough stride to be able to compete. So there was 101 odds against it winning this race. So it pulled off the impossible, and it became legendary. So Alexander Watts produced a whiskey in memory of it, and it was supposed to be a limited edition, but it was so popular and it took off so well. And this stuff was in North America, it was all over the world at the turn of the century. So he kept this going right up until their demise, when they got in trouble during Prohibition. They went from one of the largest distilleries in the world to basically shutting down. And that Tyrconnell name was purchased by a gentleman by the name of John Teeling. That'll be another story we'll get into. He purchased that name and he got it up and running, and he actually was producing this whiskey at his own distillery, the Cooley Distillery. And the story on the Cooley Distillery: John Teeling, a well-known business person, well-educated, Harvard graduate, was a guy that was involved in all sorts of different businesses, everything from the mineral investments, etc. But he also did a study paper on the decline of Irish whiskey. And what he did basically is he broke the monopoly and control of whiskey going out of Ireland by opening up the Cooley Distillery, and it was quite a challenge for him to do it. He took an old distillery on the Cooley Peninsula. It was a government-run industrial distillery for industrial alcohol. From potatoes, mostly column stills. and he put some pot stills in there, called it Cooley Distillery, and he produced various whiskeys, including this one here, where he started off with that Tyrconnell name, and he won a lot of awards for his whiskeys, became quite famous, not just in Ireland, but throughout the world, because of his whiskeys that were winning awards. One more Tyrconnell I was going to show you. You saw the, this was an Oloroso and a Muscatel finish, and this is that was a 16 years old. It's a single malt, and then here we have a 15-year-old, which is a Madeira finish. So, anyways, we're going to be doing reviews on all of these whiskeys. If you were living back at the turn of the century, this name you would have known, but today very few people know it. But it's been revived, and it was James Teeling, when he started the Cooley Distillery. He actually bought this. He bought the name, and they started reproducing this whiskey. And of course, it was bought out by Beam Suntory. And I experienced this for the first time a couple of years ago, and I was really blown away by it. There's two different Tyrconnells I have here. I've got the 16. I'm going to review the 15 though. The 16, by the way, is Oloroso and Muscatel. And this has been a huge favorite amongst a lot of reviewers, especially in Europe. Whiskey Jace and a few other reviewers have really given this very high marks. This guy here is a Madeira finish. I like this stuff. I like both of them. So, but we're going to do a review on it. So let's get started on it. And yes, I was up doing Nordic today. Up on the mountains. So this is a single malt. That's what's different about this. It's not your typical triple distilled, small percentage of grain mixed in with your single pot, like your red breasts, your Kilbegans, your yellow, green, red spots. This is a lot like Mark Rainey's distillery to the south there, the Waterford Distillery, where he's focusing a lot on single malts. So double distilled, single malt whiskey. If it was in Scotland, we could call it Scotch. So the nose, rich. Ah, boy, grassy. Like a lowlands, almost like a lowlands Scotch, you know, like a Bladnoch. Not quite an Auchentoshan, but more like a Bladnoch. Or, oh wow. So, lots of sweetness, fruitiness, bit of malt, honey, lemon sherbet. Back to the shortbread, buttery, very brown sugar like Demerara sugar, vanilla. Maybe even baking cooking batter, you know, like that when you used to buy the packaged baking cooking batter. Pillsbury biscuits. Wow, lots going on. A little bit of chocolate going on here too. Maybe brownies. This is a fantastic nose. I really. Kind of blown away by the nose on this there. Every time I do it, it's just, I could spend a lot of time on the nose here. Let's get into the palate. Swatch. More of the same. You know, the shortbread cookies, but it's got some zestiness about it, like honey lemon. That honey lemon, maybe even some lemon custard and sweet malt syrup. A little bit of fruit going on here. A little bit of fruit, but it's maybe fruit in ice cream. Ice cream mixed with fruit, fresh fruit. And this, I've had those cakes that Dairy Queen does, that, the ice cream cakes. That's what it is. Now there is a little bit of wood coming on here, and it's so slight. I know some people are more sensitive to the tannic notes of wood. Some even find it a little bit of metallic and all that stuff. I seem to miss all that stuff. Like, I get the wood, but it doesn't have the tannic notes that some people get. So I'm just letting you know that, because I seem to enjoy wood where other people find it a little bit, astringent or whatever. But it's slight. It's not overpowering. So mangoes. With the wood, you're getting mangoes. So nice blend. I mean, the wood's not overpowering for sure if I'm getting mangoes. And I think, again, it's the finishing, the Madeira casks. Yeah, I mean, this is a lush, very rich drink. Okay, the finish. This is 46% ABV. It's a very thick drink, coating my mouth. Not dry though. There's a lot of rich things going on in this drink. It's full of stuff, It's got certainly I would say a longish medium finish. But it's rich, and it's layered. So, you've got, with that wood, you had the mangoes, you had the shortbread, you even had some malty notes there, baking dough, etc. So we're going to add a little water to this. It is 46. We'll see what happens with water. And again, my policy is not overdo it with the water. Very, very few drops. I don't know how many drops. That kind of poured in there, so hopefully it's not too much. 46%. It can take water. There's a lot of body to this this whiskey, so should have no problem with water. Pears and bananas. Some lemon in the background. Even some minty stuff going on here. I've got fruitcake. And every once in a while you get something and you got to get away from it because you can't. You want to identify it. It's something I'm going to say cinnamon raisin toast in the morning with butter on it. That's what I'm smelling. Cinnamon raisin toast with butter. And back to the citrus notes. Wow. Okay, palate. We've got, it's creamy, and we always know we're going to get something sweet when we add water. So, but I've got some sweet malt. Wendy's malt. We've all, in North America, have Wendy's around us, and they still make a malted drink. It's a bit like a malted milkshake. And this is the chocolate malt. Wow, that's a good one. I just came up with that one. That's an original, but that's what I'm getting. Baking spices, vanilla pudding, Here comes the sweet cream. I'm not getting the wood. Not getting the wood, but sometimes I'll lose the wood with water. Boy, this is really easy drinking. Good finish on this. Really good finish. Like it's, even with the, I mentioned before, it's got a longish finish. Even with the water, it's got a longish finish. There's a lot. I don't know what, these guys are really, they must have some good casks. Where are they getting these casks from? Wow. Because that Madeira is really coming through. So, this is a real keeper of a whiskey. This is something you've got to, I really highly recommend. You've got to give this a try. I've recommended this to a few people, and they have complimented me for, you know, coming up with a name that they'd never heard of before. They'd never seen this before, and they really like this whiskey. So I'm going to say I was turned on to this by a friend that worked with me in the industry I work in, and he brought it back from Ireland. And I don't know if he got it at a duty free or whatever, but I really liked the whiskey. And so he turned me on to this and opened my mind up to the Irish whiskeys. And I had already been a Bushmill guy, and I had done Jameson, by the way. Jameson was not my whiskey. Bushmill was my whiskey. I drank Jameson, and I don't remember a lot of other Irish whiskeys at that time. So maybe there just wasn't any, because I know that they went down to where there was like 2 distilleries in Ireland compared to like a zillion in Scotland. So anyways, I'm glad I was introduced to Tyrconnell. So I recommend this whiskey. I really believe it is a winner. I think it can compete with any of the Irish whiskeys. Think of, the Scottish whiskeys. I think of it as a lowland whiskey in Scotland, like it would be like a Bladnoch. It is definitely competing with Scottish whiskeys. It is a fantastic value for the money. I think this is in the $110 range. I'm going to have to check out and see what it was, but for $110, a 15-year-old whiskey, finished in Madeira, excellent whiskey. I'm going to give this an 86, okay? This is an 86. So, thanks for joining me tonight on our little Irish cruise here, and we'll do more of the Irish. So, I'm going to ask you to drink wisely and intelligently. Do not drink and drive. And until the next time, Sláinte.